Hi, Polly and Taylor here from Beaten Jeans.
And we have such a cool interview today. First of all, these are our first men that we've ever interviewed. Second of all, it is Parry Guilford, the founder of the CDH1 gene, and his two very good friends who have had their gastrectomies, James and Isaia.
Yes, they're going to be coming to us all the way from New Zealand, and we are so honored and excited to speak to them today. So we're going to go ahead and invite them in. Hopefully this works the first time.
I know, we don't know how this is going to work with
3 people and a tiny screen, but we'll try and make it work.
and too.
So James, we saw that you were on. We just invited you. If you just hit that accept button, we will be all together. I feel nervous.
I feel nervous too. But these guys are super nice. We've been chit-chatting back and forth with them this last week. And Polly talked to Parry Guilford last week, one-on-one.
I did, because I'm having my gastrectomy and I just wanted to know a little bit more. I'm huge on educating and making sure that my decision is, I feel 100% confident. And
so we're going to try and invite you again. I don't know why it's not working.
So hopefully you're on your phone and not your computer.
Oh, yeah. James, are you on your phone? That is the question. It only works on the phone. And if this doesn't work, we're going to have to, we're going to have to move over to Zoom. So let's try this one more time. We're going to invite you again. If you're listening, you have to be on your phone, not on your computer.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, it worked! Yay! Hi, guys.
Hello, how are we doing?
We're good. How are you guys?
Good. We're good, thank you.
Good. All right.
We're
So
just gonna,
I'm wondering if there's a way we can fit you guys into the screen. Maybe we can move the phone back a little further.
Yeah. I think so, because his head's too fat.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys could like sit on each other's laps or something.
Snuggle. Get together. Get closer.
Yeah, we're trying. Hang on.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
Stephen.
Parry.
Good.
Oh, is he fixing the phone? Okay.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
he goes.
Hi, Marcus. Perfect.
Yay,
That's
we
good.
can see you.
We can see you.
We get the gist.
The main guy's in the middle, so it's all right. So we can just duck out.
Okay, so I just want to get this straight. So we've got Isaia. Is that right?
Shut up. Yes.
And then James. Okay.
Shut up.
And Parry.
Parry.
Cool. And Taylor.
Thank you.
Polly.
Shut up, Taylor. Shut up, Polly. Yeah.
Hi, guys. Oh, they're saying get closer to get. We can only see half of Parry and half of Isaia.
Okay.
Oh.
There you go. Get comfortable.
Yeah.
This is very comfortable. It's a bit too comfortable.
So you
Lucky
guys
that,
are all
brother.
the way in New Zealand. I've always wanted to go there.
You should.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning for you guys.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we're a day ahead. So welcome to the future. We all have flying cars.
Wednesday, right? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us this early in the morning, and we're so excited to talk to you guys and get to know you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Isaia and James, you guys are brothers, correct?
We are. Yeah.
And,
I'm the younger one, by the way.
oh, are you?
Oh. Yes, yes. Just.
I didn't know.
Not fair enough.
I've never spoken to you, Isaia. I've only spoken to James. So, we want to hear, I guess, where should we start?
I know. Okay, so we want to start from, I guess, from the beginning. When did you guys find out that you had CDH1, or how did you find out?
I guess for us, like the beginning was in 2003 when our mum passed away from it, and back then Mum actually told us to go get tested, but we never did, like, because we didn't actually make the connection that we were part of this this family link or the family line for CDH1. It wasn't until 2010 when our sister had it, and she went to hospital and stuff, and it was the exact same kind of scenario as what our mum had. that the doctors were like, hey, that's not a coincidence that you've got it and mum had it. It's they wanted to do a bit of research, and then they connected the dots for us. And then we got told, all of us got told that year to go get tested and that, and me and him both were tested positive, and one of our aunties. So I guess like for us, our journey started in 2010 when we found out.
Oh, okay.
So what you say your sister had it, are you saying that she had gastric cancer?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So she, when Jane said that she had, it was the same scenario. Here, when she went to hospital, she was they diagnosed her with stomach ulcers, which was the same exact sort of diagnosis that my mum had at the time, not realizing that it was related to gastric cancer. So that was it was just the similarities between the two scenarios where we decided, oh, actually, we need to do something about this. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how is your sister? Is she recovered from her cancer?
Yeah. No, she's good. Hopefully, she's watching. She lives up in Auckland, so she's on the other side of the country from where we are. We're down the very bottom, or near the bottom, in a place called Dunedin. Yeah, but she's recovered. Yeah.
Oh, good. What stage was her cancer?
Stage 3, I think.
I think so.
Stage 3.
So she had to go through chemotherapy and all of that?
He opted not to. They got it early enough for her to have that option. So they said, hey, chemo would have been like a bit of a cherry on top, but she, wait, is she? Did she?
I'm not sure. That's all right.
We're really good brothers.
That's so interesting, because I was told even if you're stage 2, you need to have chemo.
Right.
So that kind of makes me feel like surveillance is okay then.
Yeah.
You don't have to have chemo.
That would be nice. That would be.
I'm not sure. Things have advanced. Like when we went through our stuff. I mean, it's over 10 years ago, or just coming up 10 years for us, and for my sister over 10 years ago. So things have changed and advanced quite a lot since then. You know, when we had our surgeries, there were keyhole, for example, wasn't an option. So both myself, my brother, and my aunt and my sister have all had open surgery. Just things that advanced quite a lot. One thing I did want to do though was to sort of segue as to into sort of how we came to know Parry.
Parry, yeah.
Yeah. And for me, you know, a lot of the firstly, I really do want to acknowledge to all of the interviews that you've done prior to us. There have been some really powerful and amazing stories that from the people that you have interviewed. And I think the power comes from sharing stories and learning from each other. You know, with some of the interviews that you've done previously, you know, there were a lot of reflections of I guess similar things that have happened. But you know, so just really wanted to acknowledge all of the people that have gone before us. I think when you say about where the beginning is for us, it really does start with Parry, the amazing man over here on the right, and the acknowledgement as well of the McLeod family here in New Zealand. You know, when my mum went through, when she was first diagnosed with stomach cancer, that was actually back in 2001, and I think the research was only just really starting to emerge from Parry's work and the stuff that he had done with the McLeods, but a lot of that really did help us a number of years later make a decision as to whether we were going to, go through having the total gastrectomy or not. Back in 2010 for me,
Right.
I really did sit on the fence as to whether I would do this or not. You know, being a firefighter, I didn't realise, like, I couldn't find anything where people could go back or return to work, particularly in quite an active role or an active job. So it was through actually meeting Parry and getting to hear from him, his experiences, working with others, connecting me to other people that gave me a lot of comfort in what we decided to do in the end. So, so the beginning for me starts actually from the work that Parry's done. Yeah.
So, Parry, what year was it that you started studying the CDH1 mutation? So you had discovered you had it in 2010. How many years prior had you been studying?
Yeah, we started in 1994.
Oh, wow.
And we found it in late 97 and published in 1998. So yeah, it was quite a few years of just research, trying to find the genes and
you were
understand
pretty
it.
first on it, and were able to educate him and fill him in on the risks
Yeah,
associated.
and as I said, this family mentioned the McLeod family. So I mentioned the other day, Polly, this really big original family we worked with, who had, I think 25 deaths in 30 years from stomach cancer. And so we learned a lot from them, and this sheer scale of that family was the kind of resource that we needed as geneticists to kind of find the CDH1 gene, find the mutations in that gene. So, we've all got a big debt of gratitude to the McLeods, who, we're still working with, have done so much for us all in the HDGC community.
Right,
That's
and you had told me that they just figured that their lifespan was only 30 years, and then you put two and two together, and then you were asking them for blood samples and.
Well, not quite. It's really not the other way around. I mean, they realised that they had a genetic problem in the family, and they knew that someone out there had to have the knowledge to help find the mutation. So they drove the project. It was their project, and I was the kind of technician who came in and did the nuts and bolts stuff to kind of pull it together and find the gene. But it was driven by them. It was their desire to help their family and sort it all out. And they knew it was genetic, and they did so much of the groundwork, and we just did the technical stuff in the lab. So that's kind of the order of things, really.
Wow. Okay. So then how did you get in touch with James and Isaiah's mom? Was she the first connection for you?
From their family, I first heard from James's mother-in-law.
Oh.
My mother-in-law.
Sorry.
My mother-in-law. Dunedin is a small place. Yeah, Dunedin is a small place. Not that small, but Dunedin is a small place. So it was my mother-in-law.
So she was on it. She was saying, like, I've basically got the son-in-law at home who's just sitting around doing nothing. What's going on? So I spent a lot of meetings with his mother-in-law before I even met Isaia or James.
Oh, that's so great, though.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty good in the end.
So she knew that your mom had passed away and of the stomach cancer. So were you friends with the mother-in-law?
Well, tested positive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had tested positive, and that's when she said to when my mother-in-law said to her, mind something, when Heather said to mind something, then no mountain will stand in her way, even if the mountain is Parry. So Dunedin is a small place, and she works at the university. So reached out to Parry and really built that connection.
That's great.
For her. Yeah, and to be honest, that's a connection, as you can tell, that's been enduring to the point where Parry just ribs us, even on a live interview.
What a small world, and how lucky that connection was. So after you guys found out that you had CDH1, how soon after that discovery did you say, yes, we're going to go through and have our total gastrectomies?
So for me, we had we started the surveillance, every 6 months, going through having gastroscopies. There was a little bit of a delay between my first and second one, and I ended up travelling to Auckland to have my second gastroscopy by Dr. Sue Parry, and from there, they actually found, through the biopsies, they found sickle cells, and the choice was no longer there for me. So, yeah. And then James actually wasn't too long after. We both actually had our surgery in the same month.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's
Oh.
nice. You had each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
We also
Did you
had,
both have signet cells on biopsies? Or just have Isaiah having them was enough for both of you to do it?
well, I'm a typical younger brother. Like, I followed in his footsteps. So once he decided that he was going to rip his out, I was like, yeah, I'll sign up as well.
Sign me up.
We-
Okay.
We also had one of our mum's sisters, like my Auntie Tanya, or our Auntie Tanya. Me and her had surgery on the same day in the same hospital.
Oh,
Wow.
so are three of you
The
going
three of us.
together?
Yeah, so it was the three of us in the month of May, so it'll be 10 years this year for us. Yeah.
Wow. And you look fantastic, and you're so physically fit.
That's what I want to ask you guys, because I'm worried because we're so active. Like, we run marathons, and we bike, and we lift weights. And we hear that you don't have energy and you can't drink water. And that doesn't coincide with being active. So how do you guys do it?
I'll let James talk first. And then,
how do we do it? Well, no, I guess it's just
Hard?
years of trial and error kind of thing. So, like, just finding what works for us.
Mhm.
So, I guess for me, I was real keen on getting back into playing rugby and that sort of stuff. And at the time when I had my stomach out, I actually wasn't playing rugby. It was a doctor, or actually he wasn't a doctor, he was a medical student, and we were sitting down for the pre-op, and he told me that I wouldn't be able to play rugby again. I just thought, you're, a bit of an arrogant so-and-so. Like, how can you tell me what I can and can't do after something that you know nothing about? And I think I was messaging you guys this morning. It wasn't actually, after having my stomach out, it wasn't actually about me anymore. It was about my two daughters, and showing them that we can still live quite full lives and that sort of stuff. So as I go along, it's just trial and error. So some days I'll be like, oh, I can drink this amount of water, I can't drink this amount of water. Hey, I should have, like, what's it called, pre-workout thingy, and then realize that I can't stomach that sort of stuff. So went on to something else and just found my own kind of groove and my own kind of energy levels and that sort of stuff. So I think it was 4 months after we had our stomach out, I joined with these guys to do a half marathon.
Oh, wow. 4 months?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
It wasn't after, though, by the way.
It wasn't running very fast.
How long did it take you?
I dragged them as well, by the way.
All three of you did the race together?
No, these men watched. I gave up a lot.
Okay.
Like, it's about jumping on board with, like, these guys, and just, like, if they've got anything on, then let's put our hand up, because it's no longer, like I said, no longer about us, or it's no longer about me and him. It's about showing our kids that, we can live full lives. So I guess I just push myself to as far as I think I can go. And then if I get real tired one day, then I just make a bit of a note about it and go, oh, yeah, I shouldn't do that again. And then just keep trying again. So
Trial and error.
Trial and learn. And 10 years, you got your groove down.
Right.
And being
Yeah,
a
I think it's,
firefighter, you're able to keep your energy up.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize that, because I was reading a post about, the no stomach, no problem sort of,
Right, I read that one too.
that one, yeah. And for me, and emphasizing what James is saying, it is a lot of trial and it is a lot of error. We've had almost 10 years to sort of,
Right.
to get into a groove, but still, it's not always perfect. For me, getting back in, I got back into firefighting, I think maybe 6 or 7 months after my surgery. But it was a lot of just working my way back into the gym, figuring out how to eat again, how to eat often, so changing different routines around, and just, as James says, trial and error. One of the things that made a difference, and it's definitely something that I reflect on now, is that our journey, my journey, James's journey, it's never been just about ourselves. Our journey has been one full of a lot of other people, a lot of really great support. I think that's been the key to some of our successes, not what we do as an individual, other than our mindset, but the support that comes from everyone else. I've had amazing friends that have helped me get back into the gym. My wife at home, my mother-in-law, and father-in-law.
Do you have kids too, Isaiah?
Yeah. I've got an 8-year-old daughter, Tia, and a 5-year-old son. Started his first day of school yesterday.
Oh,
Tana.
so cute. So you can have babies after the man has a gastrectomy. Babies are still, I guess, the reproductive system and the stomach don't go hand in hand. But in case anyone's wondering, men can still have babies. They still swim. So Parry, I want to ask you. So you're sort of the man that everyone sort of wants to know the magic answer. Do you recommend, if you have CDH1, should we have our stomachs removed? Is that your advice?
My advice is that initially, it depends on your sense of or capacity to cope with risk and fear.
Right.
So if you are really comfortable with the risk hanging over your head, then I see no reason not to delay for many years. If it's starting to really bug you, if you really are concerned, it affects your day-to-day living, where you kind of wake up and, oh man, I'm just really worried, or my sore stomach must be a cancer, then it's time to have the surgery. So I think it really boils down to that decision and how the fear of the disease is affecting your daily life. When that gets too much, it's time to have an operation.
Right. It's that stress kills, right? Who knows if it can even turn that on. Do you believe that this gene can be turned on by outside factors?
Gene,
like
as in
signet cells. Like triggering, yeah. Because at the beginning we thought, well, if we ate a vegan diet and we lived this healthy lifestyle, maybe we can avoid getting the cancer altogether. Do you believe that could be a possibility?
I think it's pretty unlikely. There are certainly some environmental factors which influence the number of signet ring cells that people get, I think, but we don't know what they are yet. We're working on that. We've got a few theories. I won't go into those right now, but I've got a few theories what they might be. But they're only just a one factor, and the main driver is genetics, and that's something which is solid, and you won't be able to change that.
Right.
So, no, I don't think by going vegan and running marathons all the time, you're going to stop the disease developing. You might modify your risk, but hopefully in the right direction. But you won't stop it outright.
Okay. Right.
I'm really glad that you're asking him the really big questions.
I do want to say, in the beginning, Isaiah and James, you guys had to do a lot of trial and error to get things figured out to live a normal life, right? It took you 4 months to do your half marathon, but now fast forward 10 years later, is it just pretty much like autopilot? Like you don't even think about it anymore? Or do you have bumps in the road or bad days, good days still this far out? Yeah. Or have you figured it out enough to where you can live normally?
There are some days where you're like, oops, like I ate too fast or I ate too much and that sort of stuff, because that just comes with, I guess you get quite comfortable and that sort of stuff. But you do, well, I know for me, like I've learned to live with, the new way of life, so to speak, with CDH1 and having your stomach out and that. So I guess I've just, over time, gained knowledge around it and understood my body and that sort of stuff, and understood the mental side of things as well that came with having your stomach out. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Parry's getting a call.
Did you guys go through a depression in the beginning, or any sort of regret or anything like that?
Not really. I think for us, having walked along or having seen the challenge that my mother went through, right. Seeing my sister go through cancer as well and come out the other end. For my sister, I think it was a lot easier for us to make the decision. So in terms of regret, I wouldn't say that there were any regrets. One thing I do want to touch on though is the word normal. For us, it can be. It's not necessarily dangerous, but I don't really agree to try to generalize what normal is, because normal for everybody is going to be different. We like for myself and James, we've managed to put weight back on, for example, but that might be because of other genetic factors. For us, normal is what we're used to. And I think for everyone, normal is going to be different. I think there are some commonalities that we would have, like eating every 2 hours, wanting to fall asleep if you eat too much, having a dizzy head if you have too much coffee or too much carbs, or not being overly excited about going to the toilet. But I think for all of us, normal's going to look different, but for each person to I think it's helpful to celebrate the small triumphs along the way, and get used to, as an individual, what it is your body's telling you.
Right, your new normal.
That's
right?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
And I think for us, like, what made it easier for us was that we kept in contact. So, like, we had this little chat group on the Facebook where I'd message and be like, "Hey, has anyone tried sushi yet?" And it was like me, my brother. We had a cousin called Karen who was the first one in our family down here in Dunedin to go through it. And Auntie was just, saying, "Oh, yeah, I have tried it, but be careful," or no, it didn't really agree with me. So, like, that would came in the trial and error and helped us build our new normal kind of thing. So it was quite good to have, like, support. Like, I'd look at him and, it kind of also motivate me, because I'd see him eat 2 sausages and I could only eat 1, and I'll be real annoyed with it. Because of the competitive nature that I am.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, like, he will remind me that he's got this little pouch in there and I've got nothing and that sort of stuff. So, like, our competitiveness also helped us through a lot of the early stages, because, like, we were pushing each other to, not to get better, but, like, to just keep moving on. And it wasn't, like I said before, wasn't always about us too. Like, we had to start showing or like, for me, I've got 2 teenage daughters who are on the verge of being tested. So I have to show them that that this isn't something for them to fear. Like, we can give them enough information and enough knowledge to show them that they can still live full lives. So that's why I was quite appreciative.
You guys, they have the best role models in the whole world. It's so awesome that they have you guys.
Some days.
So do they ask you questions about it? Or, I mean, it's pretty much they're 12 and 14. So they were
and
2
8
and
and
4.
5.
Yeah. So they were little babies and not even born when you had your stomachs out. So they don't know any different. But do they still come up with questions to ask you, or do they worry?
I know, like, for me, every time we do stuff with this fine gentleman over here, we get them involved as much as possible. Like, we've been lucky enough to bring them into the lab and that, so then they can see what's going on and they can understand that there's a team behind, us that are trying to work on, like, different things and that sort of stuff. So we try to keep them involved as much as possible. When they ask me questions, I don't tend to hide anything from them either.
Good.
They definitely know that I don't have a stomach. We joke about it. Like, they call me, like, Dad's hollow inside, or, my dad's gutlets and that sort of stuff. So, like, we normalize it. We normalize it. So, like, it's obviously, if it's something that they have to face, we don't want them to be, I guess,
nervous.
For us, we were a little bit, we were in the unknown. So that's why we took a little bit longer to make that decision. But for them, we want them to have everything on the table, so then when it comes time, and if they are positive, then they can go, "This is what I'm doing," and then we can back that decision for them.
Good. That's awesome.
Great.
That's so
That's
cool.
really great.
Now, I want to go back. Isaiah, you said you have a little pouch. Where are you do you have a pouch in your stomach? Or are you talking about, like,
I think it's called a Hunt, Lawrence. So anyway, I was really worried about losing weight. At the time I was well, I'd increased my weight because I was preloading before the surgery, but I was 108 kilos, I think 230 odd pounds, I think is American equivalent. But I'd always been a larger person, so I was actually worried that I wouldn't be as good of a firefighter if I lost a whole lot of weight, which is silly, but it was just my own expectations of myself. And so what they did was they tried to give me I think it's called a Hans Lawrence pouch to try reduce the amount of weight loss.
With your intestines. I think the sisters with no stomach have that too.
Yeah. I still lost a whole lot of weight, and I don't know if they thought the result was that great, but I have noticed for me that there are some things that I experienced differently to James when I was watching him go through his surgery and stuff like that. But yeah, that's.
The truth is that Isaia just crossed because he's smaller than his younger brother.
Now, Terry, we just had a question from Nancy Brown. She wants to know, do you follow their labs? Are you their doctor or just a friend?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just a researcher. I'm just working in a lab.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor.
You don't follow James and Isaiah's lab, like their lab? Do you guys get your labs tested, or are you done going to the doctor for all this?
We're done. I'm mostly done going to a doctor. James is in a different space, but for me, I other than the regular, well, it should be regular doctor checkup, I don't go to the.
But we do know that like, if we ever did need Parry for anything, we could like ask him to come in. Like if, for example, if I had to go into an appointment at the hospital, I can always ring him up and say, hey, do you want to come in and sit with me and that sort of stuff. So he is there if need be.
Yeah.
We do try, like I know for me, I do feel like I might annoy him too much because obviously he's got important work to do and we keep reminding him that he's got, our kids to save and that sort of stuff. So we want him focused on that rather than, especially him because he's older. We don't need to worry about him anymore. Let's worry about our kids.
No, I think the other thing is that, and it probably shows just now in Parry's response how humble he is. Just a researcher. Just a researcher who discovered what CDH1 is.
He gives himself more credit.
Yeah.
Think about the lives you've saved. You've saved so many. Yeah.
Exactly.
No. Thank you. Thank all the families around the world who've given samples and given their knowledge. That's who you should be thanking for it all.
Oh, well, thank you for all you do. I do. So yes, and so I think that we should probably clarify to the group about you, Parry, and I mean, you kind of sort of started to tell about the Michaela family, how they approached you, and what were you doing at the time? Were you doing research on genetics at that time?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I had been working in France in the Pasteur Institute trying to find genes for human deafness, hearing loss. And at the time, this is like early 90s. And so in those days, it was really, really hard to find genes. We didn't have the tools, the equipment, the know-how to find genes very easily. But the French, for some reason, were really good at it. They developed these methods which were amazingly good. And so I went to France to learn these methods and try and apply these methods and to trying to find in those days genes for human deafness, which we did and it worked really well. So when I came back, I was looking for a job in the human field. I'd had another job in plant research, which I wasn't really enjoying very much. that's another story. But I wanted to get into the human field, and I rang up the head of the cancer lab who was sitting in this office. The phone rang in this office. I rang him up about 1994 and said, look, I'm really keen to get into cancer research. You got any jobs? He said, no. He said, look, if I find anything, I'll give you a call. And remarkably, like just a week later, he rang me up and he said, look, I just had a phone call from a woman from a big Maori family from the North Island saying she had this huge history of stomach cancer. They could see there was a gene running through the family, and they didn't know how to find it. And this guy Tony said to me, like, you know how to find genes, maybe you can do this. So that's how it started.
Wow.
So then I moved from Auckland, moved down to Dunedin, and started working in 1994.
When he had black hair.
It's done a lot.
That was probably hard to discover also, because everybody's mutation kind of sits in a different spot on the gene.
Yeah.
So to kind of put them together and kind of have that aha moment of this is what's going on, that you said that it took about 2.5 to 3 years to get all your research together, right?
Yeah, that was for the McLeods, that first big family. Then, so we found a particular mutation like in the middle of the CDH1 gene in that family. Then we had 2 other families, these guys, their family, and another family, another Maori family. We had their DNA in the fridge, and I thought, okay, we'll found the mutation in McLeod's. I'm sure it'll be the same mutation, exact same location in the gene in the other families. And so I went to the fridge and got out the DNA and sequenced this gene, and it wasn't there. The mutation I found in the McLeod family wasn't there. I thought, I'll just stuff this up. It's just a total disaster. I got it all wrong. And so we had to check the rest of the gene. So we sequenced the rest of the gene, and we found another mutation in a different location in that gene. The same with the third family. So then suddenly realized what was going on. It wasn't just one mutation. It was different mutations throughout the entire gene. Always the CDH1 gene, but different locations in the genes. The gene's about 2,000 letters long, so lots of places where it can be mutated.
Wow, interesting. Does being in a certain location on the gene strand mean different things?
Does that mean it's like familial? Like if you have it here, then you're probably in the same.
She's asking
Why are you pointing at Isaiah?
With my firefighting experience, I will tell you. That's definitely preparing. Yep.
In general, no. There are some you can get. We think some mutations occurring right down the far end of the gene. We think maybe less severe and lower risk, but otherwise, most mutations through the vast majority of the gene are all pretty
risk. Are those VUS, the variants of unknown
significance? The VUS variants, that's another issue. So those are mutations where we just don't quite know what they mean.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So normally, most mutations, or a lot of mutations, probably most mutations, we kind of know what they mean. We know it's kind of like a spelling mistake, and you can kind of see, well, that definitely wrecks that word. But other changes can be more subtle, and we just don't quite understand whether that spelling mistake is serious or not. So that's a VUS. We can definitely see a change in the DNA sequence, but we don't know for sure whether it wrecks the function of the gene.
Okay.
A lot of them would do. A lot of them, it's really clear that they wreck the function of the gene. But some, the VUS, we're not so sure. It's a difficult one. So unfortunately.
Let me get this straight. You said this to me the other day, you said that my mutation is higher up on the gene. So yes, that's definitely pathogenic and can cause some problems. But then you just said that if you're lower down, you may not have that risk. Why is that higher or lower? And how can somebody find out if their gene is higher or lower?
Yeah, okay. So just to be clear, that there's only a small area right down one end of the gene where there is lower risk or perhaps no risk. So it's just a really, really small area. So don't get too fixated on that. The vast majority of the gene is all the same.
Okay.
And then most of the mutations, it's very clear what they do. It's very clear that they destroy the function of the gene. Okay, and so in your case, the mutation stops that gene working dead at that spot. Okay. So there's no doubt about it all. And most of the time, it's absolutely clear that the mutation does wreck the gene. But we have these other ones called VUS, which are reasonably common, to be fair. And there we don't really quite know what they do. And in general, VUS, normally they probably are less likely to cause disease, but we cannot be certain about that. Hence, the doubt hangs over people who have the VUS.
It's really hard for all those people with the VUS.
Yeah. It's really tough, and again, that's one of the drivers why we're trying to develop some drugs to try and delay or prevent development of the disease. It's not only for people who have obvious mutations, but it's also for those who've got that niggly doubt of a VUS. So if they can take some kind of drug every once in a while to kind of reduce the likelihood of disease, which may or may not be there, then that's an important thing for those people too.
So you're working on that drug right now?
As we speak, I should actually be in the lab now.
Wow. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So we've been working on this. So big lab out there. Lots of people out in the lab working away at the moment. And so we've been doing this for probably about the last 15 years. We've been on this.
Wow.
Cool. Isaiah's oldest daughter, who's what, 9?
No, 8 this year. Turning 9 this year.
You turned 9 this year. So we set a timeline. We said, okay, well, rather than having a clock, watching 1995, we thought, okay, we'll set the timer on Tia and his daughter, and when she is old enough to have a gene test and perhaps some kind of intervention, we want to give her a choice.
Yeah. So every year we send Parry an updated photo of Tia, and it brings the human aspect to a timeline. So instead of just looking at years, you're looking at the growth of a person and hoping that that there's options available.
So when they celebrate,
than that, right?
it's great for them. I mean, when Tia starts a new school, everyone's excited, and I just get really worried. It's not my
Yeah. So we better get on that.
yeah, that's right. But yeah, so we've been making some good progress there. So we've now got we've done a huge amount of work. We've done one student called Henry did a drug screen of 113,000 compounds. Just screen through them all to try and find some which might kill these early stage cancers. And we found a couple out of the 113,000 which looked to be promising.
Wow.
But we've got we've got about a list of about 12 or so drugs we like the look of now. And most of those drugs have been used before for other cancers, and so we've got a head start. We know they're clinically safe, or safe as far as cancer drugs go. So now we're going to the process of trying to work through a lot more kind of preclinical validation on these drugs to try and choose the best one, or maybe try and develop a combination of them. Also, we've got a team of people who are working on trying to find better ways to deliver these drugs. So we've got less concerns about side effects of these drugs, because obviously people would need to take them perhaps every year. It might be that you take a course of drugs for a couple of weeks every year. That might be one way it happens, and so even then we would still like to kind of have the drugs to be less toxic than they are, currently. So we're trying to figure out ways to get around it, either by drug combinations or by just using a lower dose. Simply could be one way to do it, or by trying to deliver the drugs directly to the stomach or the breast, rather than having to go, IV or through the oral route.
Wow.
So
Incredible. So cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why we call Parry.
Yeah.
Wow, there's hope. There is hope. That's incredible.
Hope for maybe our children or their children, huh?
Yeah. Well, keep an eye on Tia's birthdays, and you'll know how it's going.
Yeah. Just about the same age as my daughter, so.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Right. We'll add your photograph, and we'll add her to our kind of our board outside, and we'll use her to take photos as well.
Okay. That'd be great.
Now, who funds this research? Is it government funded, or is there a way for people to donate?
There's a mixture. So we get some funding from the New Zealand Health Research Council, but we also get really good support from No Stomach for Cancer. Or some people kind of just donate straight to the lab. We've got a way to kind of go straight to the lab as well. So lots of things they can do to support if they want to.
Okay, great.
Wow.
Wow, exciting.
I know. Oh my gosh, I feel like we learned so much. And do you have any more questions?
I have lots. I want to know about like once you get to like stage 2 or 3, and I don't know if you know about this, but it's my understanding that the diffuse cancer is like chemo resistant to a lot of chemos. So are you seeing that with these medications you're using too, that they aren't working studies so far?
Yep.
Like
So
works
that's
for a little bit, but then stops.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't. I mean, we're really currently just looking at this very early stage signet ring cell. So this really our main interest there is that for the chemo prevention, stopping these cancers developing. So they're way simpler to try and treat and think about than a really advanced cancer where there's lots of mutations and things going really crazy and it's all very disorganized. But it's absolutely true that chemotherapy, the standard chemotherapy that people get for diffuse stomach cancer doesn't work very well, and to me it's an absolute disgrace that most oncology clinics around the world will still treat gastric cancer as the same disease when there's at least two main forms, the diffuse type and intestinal type. The intestinal type, you do get some response to chemotherapy. The diffuse type, you very rarely get a response to chemotherapy, but people still get given these horrible drugs. I think it's really poor, and that needs to change.
Is there another option besides chemo?
Not really. I mean, there's lots of groups around the world starting to address this problem now. So not only us, we obviously got an interest mainly on the HDGC side of things, but we have some interest in advanced cancer as well. But other groups around the world are working on that as well. So we're seeing really good progress with some new exciting drug candidates starting to appear, and so I think we'll start to see things will start to change from now on outwards.
Now you're in close contact with Dr. Davis, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So we really hope that we'll be linking up with them for our clinical trials over the next few years when we get them to that stage.
Wow. Right, you talked to me the other day about how he's maybe has already started or is going to take some stomachs and keep them alive for a couple days and do some testing on them.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a great project he's got going where some wonderful donors who have decided to have a gastrectomy have had their stomachs removed, and then they've been kept alive in the lab for about 5 days. And so we would love to be using those to kind of test some of our drugs on, because that'll be a good way to kind of see if they're working. Okay. I'll give you my address.
He's a keeper or polystyrene.
Right.
That's incredible. It gives me so much hope for my kids, because like you guys, I've been having my stomach studied for 6 years because I'm holding out hope for my children, but I think I've waited as long as I can now. Yeah, her worry has taken over.
Yeah. No, I think that comes. The time is right.
Yeah.
And
6 years brought some knowledge to them. I don't know. To you guys, I don't know. Yeah.
One thing we talked about Polly the other day, and was chatting before with these guys, is that we work with some emerging evidence here from work done by a student called Kahu on one of the biggest stomach cancer families here, that those people who felt that they played a major part in the decision to have a gastrectomy, that they felt it was really their choice and not someone else putting pressure on them, or they felt they had their arms twisted, they have a better recovery and do better overall than people who, go into it all unsure and not so keen, and maybe I shouldn't, I'll just, my mum says I better do it, so I better do it. Those people don't do as well as those people like Polly, who do everything they can to figure it all out, have a good hard think about it all, and then come to a conclusion about what they want to do. That's the people who do way better.
Well, that's good to know. It's like a positive frame of mind.
Positive frame of mind, exactly. Yeah. Yep. Right. Very, very important.
Wow.
Well, do we have anything else?
We have questions written down just in case.
Yeah.
You work with any other? Besides Dr. Davis, are you working with any other surgeons?
Well, we have over the years worked with a lot of the people at Sloan Kettering, Dan Coyd and Vivian, Sloan Kettering, Sam Yoon, who was there, is now at Columbia. I think Sam's been working with us recently on these little mini stomachs called organoids, so he's been a fantastic collaborator as well. We're working with some of the New Zealand surgeons too. So lots of great network.
Ideas back and forth. And will you be at the symposium in April?
Kind of. It starts with, so it's not in person anymore, so it's all virtual. And the problem for me, and I don't want to sound like I'm a bit lame, but it starts at 12:30 at night and finishes at 7:30 in the morning. I'm supposed to give it 3:30 in the morning, and they'll say 6:30 in the morning, I think. And I don't know how it's going to go.
Good. No, I would want to do
that. So I might just record my talks, and then I'll wake up at 8:30 in the morning and see how you guys got on without me.
And I have one more question. Do you think that this mutation is bigger than what we originally thought? Like when we joined the study, there was how many families?
100 families.
100 families that they knew about in the world. Do you believe that this could be bigger than what we all realize it is? That more people?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's at least 500 families, at least, known, and a number of unknown families. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's wouldn't call it common. It's still a rare syndrome, but it's a lot more common. A lot more families have not yet been identified than have been identified.
Can I ask one more question too? If you have another mutation that causes or increases your risk for stomach cancer, like I know the BRCA does too, and I don't know if there's other ones, but if you have more than one that you're prone to stomach cancer, do they speak to those mutations, like end up collaborating together, or are they completely separate?
They are. I mean, in the case you gave of BRCA and CDH1, they're completely separate. But in principle, what you suggest is possible that some mutations could increase the risk, and we think that might be what's going on. The McLeod family we mentioned before, their rate is really high. 70% plus of people getting advanced disease. Other families, the rate's lower, around maybe 25-30%. And so that difference is caused either by environment or, as we mentioned before, some possible things there, but it's probably mainly driven by genetics. So other mutations or we probably shouldn't call them mutations, but we call them gene variants. So just modifications of genes which do modify the risk of the CDH1 mutation. Okay. So if you have other mutations, known mutations, other cancer genes, it's worth thinking about. But we currently are unaware of any other genes which collaborate with CDH1.
Okay. So are you still studying? Are you still studying that gene strand to see what it is? Why some families get it more than other families? Or are you more now on the treatment?
Yeah, we aren't doing too much on that, but a lot of people are. So I think particularly Carla Oliveira in Portugal has a real interest in that kind of area, and a number of groups do as well in the US too. So it's not our main focus. We're mainly thinking about these drugs at the moment, but lots of people are working in that area as well.
Well, we appreciate you so much.
Yeah, we do.
You're incredible, and you are a hero, and we appreciate all the work you've done for all the families out there.
We appreciate the McKinney family for asking for help and for reaching out and all of it.
Yeah. And you guys too. You guys are heroes to us and to your family, and
so I'm gonna be looking up to you. So hopefully you'll be there for me if I have questions.
But they're just 6'5", so I think everyone naturally just looks up anyway.
Oh wow, 6'5".
Yeah.
You are 6'5". Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Not bad for them. His older brother's about 5'10".
6'1.5". I have to have a half in there to make you feel better.
So are you in the lab right now?
Yep.
You can't show it. Can you show us anything real quick?
We couldn't take you for a wee walk, but it's not very exciting actually. To be fair, it's pretty quiet because we're all poised for Omicron's arrival here in New Zealand at the moment.
Okay.
And so everyone's working at home, unless they really have to do an experiment. They're all working at home.
Okay.
But we could take you for a wee stroll around.
Yeah, we'd love to. Yeah, we want to see it.
Magic happens.
We'll show you.
This was James's idea, by the way.
Oh, do I? Oh, no. How do you turn it around? We'll turn it around. Yes. Oh, yeah, okay. Right, we're leaving the office. Okay. The lab.
Girls are there, right?
There's one of the brainy guys.
Oh, hi.
We appreciate you.
So he works on He works on computers. He works on computers.
I think I want to see the photo.
Oh, yeah, okay, we'll get this. Is it? Yeah, yeah. And this is James's rugby jersey, so he played for a version of the All Blacks.
I
Pretty
saw
amazing.
that. And he gave you the jersey
here's-
for thanking. For thanking.
And
Yeah.
here's the kid, the office door,
Oh, the
where,
motivation. Oh.
yeah, so these are Isaiah's kids. This is James and his rugby team. There's, Isaiah's daughter, Tia. So this is our timeline board. Another young fella from a different family in the corner there. So that's the clock that we use. And then we go cruise around the lab. We have quiet. Let's see if we can find someone down here. Look, here we go. People working. Look at that. They're impressive. Here we go.
Thank you
This is
for all
Emily.
you do.
Emily's working. Haven't got a lunch.
Was that a stomach?
Watermelon.
Was that a stomach?
That's not a stomach, no. We got people down there, so it's just the general lab where it kind of happens.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
There you go.
Yeah, oh, those are the brothers.
Oh, those are the boys.
I'll give the phone back to Isaia.
How cool. Oh, that was so fun.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else that you want to leave us with, words of wisdom, or anything that we forgot to ask that we're going to be like, why didn't we ask that?
No, nothing I can think of. We can't do that. I think
I know you can see.
was one of the things that probably I'll share. It's more out of humour than anything. Is that just before actually I was sort of in the waiting area waiting to go in for surgery. I still was unsure about the whole thing. In the sense that I was not too sure how to feel. I was just it was just sort of. I wasn't nervous, really. I wasn't anxious. I just didn't know how to feel. Anyway, I was. There was a nurse that was in there just before I was getting wheeled in, and she said to me, which made me brightened up my day, or brightened up my how I was feeling. She said to me, "If you want to know who put the catheter in, what nurse put the catheter in, look for the nurse that's smiling when you wake up." And that changed my whole perspective on things, and really just brightened about that. Yeah.
We all just need a little laugh sometimes when we're in that space, right?
Yeah. But
long.
yeah, just for me again, like our just
I don't want to know that.
just our greatest strength is our sport. So yeah, that's what I want to do.
Good.
I'll pass to these guys.
I'm not going to follow up with that story. No. You can't think that.
What happened to you before you went under?
I was actually lucky enough, when I was getting wheeled in, an old friend from our childhood was wheeling me in, because I was quite petrified, because my auntie, I was lucky enough that my auntie went in first before I did. So she was the first surgery of the day. I was the second, and just as I was getting wheeled in, I happened to look up, and a friend of mine, or a friend of ours, his name was Matt Fogarty, was wheeling me into surgery, and he just
that was a good moment.
Yeah, so he just reminded us of, I guess, like of our whānau, our family here, of they're quite strong, and that we've come through a lot of trials before, and this thing's just another thing that we can add to a story that we tell later on, and that was quite nice. And then I ended up insulting our surgeon, because I asked him if he cleaned the tools and if he was going to use the same one that my auntie had, and then I woke up and asked him why my auntie had staples and I had stitches. I said, did they run out of staples and that sort of stuff? It was my humour that got me through. The other thing actually worth noting was that when I woke up, I looked around and I see this dude eating potato chips in front of me, and then asking me if I wanted one, but obviously I wasn't allowed to. And he just chewing on it and goes, "Oh, it tastes good." I was just like, "You absolute muppet." But it's humour that got us through.
I don't remember that detail, sorry.
It stuck luck with him, that's for sure. Oh, that's so good you have each other. I love that.
I know. Makes me think Stephanie should.
It makes me feel like I need to do it when Polly does it now, but I gotta do my boobs first. I gotta do my boobs. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
So what
One
about
thing
you,
at-
Parry? Any last words of advice or wisdom you want to share?
No, I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing. It really is good. I have watched quite a few of your videos as well. I think they're really, really good. Great to see the stories, and it's great for the people in the lab out there that they don't feel like they're working in isolation. They actually know they're working for an important problem, that people really care about what they're doing, and so it's great for them to watch videos such as the ones you guys are doing.
Good.
Help them get grounded and also help them get motivated to kind of work a bit harder. So good. Thank you very much.
Well,
I
good.
quite like looking at your fellows' posts, especially about the food, because I'm realizing that I'm eating maybe a bit too much and I should be watching what I eat. So I quite enjoy this vegan meals that you keep putting out and stuff.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're like, we don't think people care about our food. We should just focus on this now. So,
If you see the plate of food that me and him eat, you kind of think that we don't have stomachs. Or like we do still have our stomachs, I mean. Like we eat quite big portions, so I quite appreciate looking at your posts and going, actually, I probably should start thinking about watching what I eat.
oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
It's all very good. So you should try one of our recipes. Well, thank you guys. You guys were so fun to talk to, and you had so much insight and knowledge and
Wisdom
hope.
and hope.
Yeah, hope.
Yes. For
Yeah.
our kids and our children and their future. So
Yeah.
thank you for everything that you guys are doing, and we're
And
just so
taking time
appreciative.
out of your busy day. We know you're supposed to be in the lab, so thank you for being here and talking to us.
And thank you for teaching us how to use this Instagram Live thing.
It's fun, huh? All right, you guys.
All right. Good to see you.
Yeah, have
See you later.
enjoy your day. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.